The sky over Seoul turned purple on the day the aliens came. People stopped in the streets and looked up. Children pointed at the massive ships that blocked the sun. The world held its breath. The Empire had finally arrived. Their ships were beautiful in a strange way. They looked like giant silver flowers floating in the sky. Each one was bigger than a mountain. News channels around the world showed the same images. Humans had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer. The aliens sent a message to every screen on Earth. They came in peace, they said. They wanted friendship. They wanted to share their knowledge with humanity. Their words were smooth and gentle like honey. Leading the diplomatic mission was Princess of the Third Royal House. She was the daughter of Queen, ruler of the Empire. When stepped off her ship for the first time, cameras from every nation captured the moment. She was beautiful. Her skin was pale silver, almost like moonlight given form. Her eyes were large and dark, holding depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies. Her hair flowed like liquid metal down her back. She smiled at the humans who greeted her, and that smile made people trust her instantly. But beauty can hide many things. Far above Earth, on the main flagship, Queen watched everything through a special connection. She could see what her daughter saw. She could hear what her daughter heard. Every moment was recorded and sent to the Queen's private chambers. Queen was old, very old. She had lived for 3,000 years and conquered more than 100 worlds. She knew that the best way to defeat an enemy was not always through war. Sometimes, the best weapon was trust, and the best soldiers were those who could make others believe lies. Princess was her finest weapon. The United Earth Council assigned a military officer to work with Princess. His name was. He was a lieutenant in the United Earth Defense Force, a pilot who had fought in 3 different conflicts against space pirates and hostile alien species. He was 32 years old, quiet and serious. His superiors chose him because he was smart and because they believed he could not be tricked. They were wrong. Met Princess on a Tuesday morning. She greeted him with a small bow, a human custom she had learned. Her voice was soft when she spoke. "Lieutenant," she said, "I have heard much about you. They say you are one of humanity's finest officers." Kept his face neutral. "I am just doing my job, Princess." "Please," she said, "call me." Over the following weeks, escorted to meetings, cultural events, and diplomatic functions, he watched her carefully at first, looking for signs of deception, but was patient. She did not rush. She knew that trust was like a plant. It needed time to grow. She asked questions about his life. Where did he grow up? What was his family like? What did he dream about as a child? At first, he gave short answers, but listened with such attention, such genuine interest, that slowly he began to open up. He told her about the coastal city where he was born. He told her about the sound of waves and the smell of salt in the air. He told her about his mother, who had died in the First Contact War when hostile aliens attacked Earth. He told her about his loneliness, about the empty apartment he returned to each night. Stored every word in her memory. Every detail was a tool she could use. She began to share things too, or what seemed like sharing. She spoke of the pressure of being a princess, of never being allowed to make her own choices. She talked about how cold and distant her mother was. She said she sometimes wished she had been born ordinary. "You understand," she told one evening as they walked through a garden in Seoul. Cherry blossom petals fell around them like pink snow. "You know what it means to be alone." Looked at her. In the soft light, her silver skin seemed to glow. She was beautiful, yes, but it was more than that. She seemed to see him, really see him. Not the soldier, not the officer, but the man underneath. He felt something he had not felt in years: hope. On the flagship, Queen smiled as she watched the recording. Her daughter was performing perfectly. The human was falling into their trap exactly as planned. "Humans are strange creatures," the Queen said to her advisor. "They form connections so easily. They want so badly to be understood that they will ignore all warning signs. The lieutenant seems intelligent, the advisor noted. Intelligence means nothing against loneliness, Queen replied. My daughter has found his weakness. Now she will use it. 3 months after their first meeting, Princess kissed beneath the cherry blossom trees. When she pulled back, there were tears in her eyes. They looked real. They felt real. I need to tell you something, she whispered. Something dangerous, but I trust you, I trust only you. His heart was beating fast. What is it? Looked around as if checking for spies. Then she leaned close to his ear. My mother is planning to invade Earth. The peace talks are a lie, but I want to stop her. I want to help you. I want to defect. Pulled back and looked into her eyes. He searched for deception. He found none. She had practiced too well. Why, he asked, why would you betray your own people? Touched his face gently. Because I have found something here that I never had in my empire. I found someone who cares about me, not the princess, me. In that moment made a choice. He chose to believe her, against his training, against his instincts, against everything that had kept him alive through years of war. He chose love over logic. And far above, Queen watched in satisfied silence as her trap closed shut. Took a great risk. He brought Princess to a secret meeting with the United Earth Council. The meeting happened in an underground bunker, far from any cameras or recording devices. Only the most important leaders were there. Played her part perfectly. She spoke with a trembling voice, like someone who was afraid but brave. She told them about the invasion plans. She shared coordinates of a secret fleet hiding beyond Neptune. She gave them codes that could hack into communication systems. She even provided designs for weapons that could destroy their shields. The council members looked at each other. Some believed her, some did not. They tested the information she gave them. Parts of it worked perfectly. The codes opened doors. The technical data matched what human scientists knew about technology. But they did not test everything. They could not test the most important piece, the location of the secret fleet. General, the head of the Earth Defense Force, made the final decision. He ordered 47 reconnaissance ships to investigate the coordinates had provided. These ships carried 12,000 crew members, soldiers, pilots, engineers, doctors. Each one had a family. Each one had dreams. Was not on those ships. He stayed on Earth with. He wanted to protect her, to keep her safe from any agents who might try to silence her. He thought he was being a good soldier. He thought he was being a good man. He was a fool. The 47 ships jumped to the coordinates beyond Neptune. They expected to find a hidden fleet. Instead, they found death. 300 warships were waiting for them. It was not a fleet preparing for invasion. It was a trap preparing for victims. The battle lasted 11 minutes. Human ships were fast and brave, but they were outnumbered, and distress signals flooded the communication channels. Screams, explosions, then silence. Was standing on the observation deck of Earth's orbital command station when the signals stopped. Large screens showed the status of each ship. One by one, the green lights turned red. One by one, 12,000 lives ended. Princess stood next to him. She watched the screens with no expression on her face. Her mask of kindness and fear had disappeared. In its place was something cold, something empty. A pity, she said. Her voice was casual, like she was talking about the weather. They fought harder than I expected, but in the end it did not matter. Could not speak. His throat was tight. His hands were shaking. He had trusted her. He had loved her. And she had used that love to kill 12,000 people. Turned to face him. Her beautiful eyes held no warmth now. They were as cold as distant stars. You want to know why, she said. It was not a question. You want to understand, so let me explain, let me give you a gift, the gift of truth. She walked slowly around him, like a predator circling wounded prey. My people have conquered 1,000 worlds. We have learned that every species has a weakness. For some, it is pride. For others, it is fear. But humans, your weakness is hope. You hope so desperately for connection, for understanding, for love that you blind yourselves to danger. She stopped in front of him. Her silver face was beautiful and terrible. The Queen chose you specifically, not randomly. We studied your psychological profile. We knew about your mother's death. We knew about your loneliness. We knew that if I became your hope, you would believe anything I told you. Finally found his voice. It came out rough and quiet. Everything was a lie. Everything confirmed. Every smile, every tear, every whispered secret. My mother watched it all through our neural link. She guided me when needed. She praised me when I performed well. Smiled, but it was not a kind smile. You were my graduation test, my proof that I was ready to serve the Empire. On the flagship above, Queen watched through's eyes. She expected the human to break now. She expected screaming, crying, begging, perhaps violence. Humans were emotional creatures. They would react with passion. But did something unexpected. He became still. The shaking stopped. The tightness in his throat relaxed. His eyes, which had been wide with shock, became calm, quiet, like the surface of deep water. He really looked at her. Not at her beauty, not at the memories of false love. He looked at what she really was, a weapon, a tool, nothing more. "Thank you," he said. Frowned, this was not the reaction she had expected. "Thank you for what?" "For teaching me what you are, what your empire is. I could have spent years wondering if there was good in you, hoping you might change, believing that somewhere inside the person I loved was real." He took a step back from her, not in fear, in decision. "Now I know the truth. There is nothing inside you. You are empty, and I will never make this mistake again." He turned and walked away. He did not look back. He did not say another word. The door closed behind him with a soft sound. Stood alone on the observation deck. For a long moment she did not move. Something felt wrong. She had won. The mission was successful, but victory felt strange, hollow. On the flagship, Queen leaned forward in her throne. Her ancient eyes narrowed as she studied the recording of walking away. "Interesting," she said softly. Her advisor looked confused. "My queen, the operation was successful. We destroyed their reconnaissance fleet." "Yes," Queen agreed. "But look at that human. Look at his face as he leaves." The advisor looked. He saw a man walking with straight shoulders. A man who was not crying, not screaming, not breaking. A man who looked like he had just made a decision. "What do you see, my queen?" Queen was silent for a long time. When she spoke, her voice held something rare, uncertainty. "I see a man who is no longer hopping, a man who has stopped asking questions, a man who now knows exactly who his enemy is." She paused. "I wanted to break human spirit, but I think my daughter may have done something far more dangerous." "What?" The queen did not answer, but as she watched disappear through the door, she felt something she had not felt in centuries. The first small whisper of worry. The memorial ceremony lasted 3 days. 12,000 names were read aloud, one by one. Families gathered in parks, churches, temples, and mosques around the world. They held pictures of their loved ones. They cried. They hugged each other. Attended every hour of the ceremony. He stood in the front row of the military section, wearing his formal uniform. He did not cry. He did not speak. He simply listened as each name was spoken. Park Lee Myra. Name after name. Life after life. Each one was a person he had sent to death because he trusted the wrong woman. Some people would have been destroyed by this guilt. Some would have taken their own lives. Some would have run away from responsibility, but did none of these things. Instead, he did something that surprised everyone. He returned to duty the next day. He flew training missions. He taught young pilots. He attended meetings and wrote reports. His superiors watched him carefully, expecting him to break. He never did. He was quiet and focused. He did his job perfectly, but something in his eyes had changed. There was no warmth there anymore, only purpose. The story of what happened spread through the military. Not officially, but in whispers. Soldiers talked in mess halls. Officers discussed it behind closed doors. The alien princess had seduced one of their own. She had used love as a weapon, and 12,000 people had paid the price. At first there was anger toward. Some blamed him for trusting her. Some said he should be court-martialed. But as the full truth came out, as people learned how carefully they had planned their trap, the anger changed direction. It pointed at the aliens now. Human diplomats stopped smiling at representatives. Trade negotiations became cold and formal. Cultural exchange programs were canceled. The warmth that humans had shown to their new alien neighbors disappeared like morning fog under a hot sun. Princess noticed the change. She was still on Earth, still playing the role of diplomat. But now, when she entered rooms, conversations stopped. People looked at her with flat, empty eyes. They answered her questions with short words. They never shared personal information. She tried her old tricks. She smiled. She asked about their families. She pretended to care about their problems. Nothing worked. It was like trying to warm herself by a fire that had turned to ice. She sent a report to her mother. The humans have changed. They no longer respond to emotional manipulation. They treat me like I am made of glass. They look through me, not at me. Queen received the report on her flagship. She had been receiving many strange reports lately. Her spies on Earth sent similar messages. Human informants who once sold secrets for money now refused to talk. Human politicians who once accepted bribes now rejected all contact. It was as if an invisible wall had risen around the entire species. The Queen called a meeting with her intelligence officers. "Explain this to me," she demanded. "Why are the humans behaving this way?" Her chief spy, a male named in his human disguise, stepped forward. "My Queen, we are seeing something we have never encountered before. The humans are sharing information among themselves, not just the military but everyone. They are telling each other about our manipulation tactics. They are teaching each other how to recognize deception." "That is normal defensive behavior," the Queen said. "We have seen it before." "Yes, my Queen, but there is something different this time." Paused, choosing his words carefully. "They are not just defending against us. They are changing who they are. They are restructuring their entire society to make manipulation impossible." Another officer spoke up. "We captured a human soldier last week. We tried to interrogate him using standard psychological techniques. He revealed nothing useful, not because he resisted, but because he genuinely knew nothing. The humans have divided their command structure so that no single person holds important information. They have turned their own ignorance into armor," added. "They trust each other to do their jobs, but they no longer trust anyone with secrets, not even their own families." Queen sat in silence. She had conquered many species in her long life. Some had fought with weapons. Some had fought with courage. Some had surrendered without fighting at all. But she had never seen a species respond to defeat by fundamentally changing itself. "Show me the human," she ordered. A screen flickered to life. It showed training young pilots in a simulator room. His movements were precise and efficient. His instructions were clear and direct. There was no wasted motion, no wasted words. He looked like a machine shaped like a man. "He was supposed to be broken," Queen said quietly. "My daughter destroyed his ability to trust, his capacity for love." "Yes, my Queen. But he is not broken." The Queen leaned forward, studying the screen with ancient eyes. "He is not weaker. He is something else now, something harder." She thought about what she was seeing. The human had experienced the worst betrayal possible. The woman he loved had been a lie. His trust had killed thousands. Most beings would collapse under such weight. But humans were strange. They did not just survive trauma. They adapted to it. They built new selves from the broken pieces of their old ones. They used pain as material for construction. My daughter taught them their lesson too well, Queen realized. She showed them exactly how we operate. She revealed all our methods, and now they are building defenses against everything we might try. What should we do, my queen? The queen did not answer immediately. She watched on the screen. He was correcting a young pilot's grip on the control stick. Patient, precise, cold. We should have destroyed them quickly, she finally said. Before they had time to learn. Now it may be too late. On Earth finished his training session. He walked to the window and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there they were preparing for war. He knew it. Everyone knew it now. But humanity was preparing too. Not with anger, not with fear, with something more dangerous. They were preparing with silence, with patience, with cold, clear understanding of their enemy. The cherry blossoms were blooming again in Seoul. Had not visited that garden since the night of his kiss. He never would again. That part of him was dead now. In its place, something new had grown, something that had never seen before. A human who would never trust again. A human who would never hope again. A human who would fight not with passion but with precision. And he was not alone. Across Earth, millions of humans were becoming the same thing. The Queen had wanted to break them. Instead, she had made them unbreakable. 3 years passed. The Empire finally launched its invasion. Queen had waited this long to gather her forces. She wanted an overwhelming victory. She assembled 5,000 warships, the largest fleet her empire had ever sent against a single world. Her generals promised her that Earth would fall within 1 week. They were wrong. The fleet arrived expecting to find a broken and divided humanity. They found something else entirely. Human ships did not send greetings or requests for negotiation. They did not broadcast messages of peace or desperate pleas for mercy. They simply appeared from behind asteroids and moons and opened fire. The first battle lasted 6 hours. But they lost 200 ships. This was unacceptable. They had expected to lose 20 at most. How are they fighting so effectively? An admiral demanded. Our intelligence said their fleet was small and outdated. The answer came in pieces over the following weeks. Human ships were not better than ships. Human weapons were not stronger, but human tactics had changed completely. They used tricks that commanders had never seen before. Human ships would pretend to be damaged, drifting helplessly in space. When rescue teams approached, the ships would explode, destroying everything nearby. Human pilots would broadcast fake surrender signals, then attack when the enemy lowered their shields. They are using our own methods against us, one officer realized. They learned deception from us, but they use it without hesitation, without honor. This was the truth that they had not understood. For them, deception was an art. It was something to be proud of, something to admire. They lied with elegance and style. Humans had no such feelings. For them, deception was simply a tool. They used it the way they used guns and missiles, without emotion, without pride, just cold efficiency. Lieutenant was now commander. He led the defense of humanity's moon colonies. His tactics became famous among both human and forces. He never did what his enemy expected. He attacked when he should have retreated. He retreated when he should have attacked. He used civilian ships as decoys and turned mining equipment into weapons. One captain who survived an encounter with reported something disturbing. He recorded messages and played them on our communication frequencies. Not threats, not demands, just simple statements. He said things like, "We believed you once, we will not believe again." And then his ships would attack from directions we never expected. The psychological effect was powerful. Soldiers began to fear human forces in a way they had never feared any enemy before. Other species fought with passion. Humans fought with patience. Other species made mistakes when they were angry or scared. Humans seemed to have no emotions at all. Princess watched the war from a forward observation post. Her job was to monitor human communications and look for weaknesses to exploit. She spent long hours listening to human transmissions. She heard orders given in flat, calm voices. She heard soldiers confirming kills without excitement. She heard commanders discussing strategy like they were planning a business meeting. There was no fear, no anger, no hope. And sometimes, late at night, she heard Commander's voice. He would give instructions to his pilots in that quiet, steady tone she remembered from their time together. But the warmth was gone. The humanity was gone. He sounded like a weapon that had learned to speak. Found herself thinking about him often. In her culture, deception was considered a high art. The best liars were celebrated as geniuses. She had been proud of what she did too. She had proved her skill. But now she wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. She had not destroyed his capacity for trust. She had simply redirected it. Humans now trusted actions, not words. They trusted patterns of behavior, not promises. They trusted their own people completely but trusted no one outside their species. Before the war, humans had been warm and open. They had reached out to alien species with friendship. They had believed in peace and cooperation. They had been easy targets for manipulation. Now they were cold, closed, impossible to deceive because they believed nothing anyone told them. They checked every piece of information 10 times. They assumed every friendly gesture was a trap. Had taught them to be like this. She had been their teacher, and they had learned their lesson perfectly. The war continued for 2 years. The pushed forward, taking outer colonies and mining stations. But every victory cost them more than expected. Human defenders fought to the last soldier. They destroyed their own bases rather than let them be captured. They never surrendered. Why do they not surrender? Queen asked during a strategy meeting. Other species know when they are beaten. They save themselves by accepting defeat. Why do humans keep fighting? Her admiral had no good answer. Perhaps they do not understand their situation. No, the Queen said slowly. She was looking at combat footage from a recent battle. A human ship, badly damaged and clearly dying, had steered itself into a carrier. The pilot had sacrificed himself to destroy a ship worth 1,000 times more than his own. They understand perfectly. They simply do not care about survival anymore. She paused, thinking about what that meant. We took something from them, she said. 3 years ago, my daughter took their innocence, their hope, their belief that the universe could be kind. That was the plan, my queen, to weaken them. Yes, Queen's voice was heavy. But we did not weaken them. We freed them. They no longer fear death because they no longer expect good things from life. They fight without hesitation because they have nothing left to protect except revenge. She looked at her admirals with ancient, tired eyes. We have created enemies who have nothing to lose, and there is nothing more dangerous in the universe than that. On the front lines, Commander led another attack. His face was calm. His hands were steady. Inside his chest, where love had once lived, there was only cold purpose. He would not stop until the war was over. And he did not care if he survived to see the end. The war turned slowly, like a giant ship changing direction. At first, they did not notice. They were still winning battles. They were still capturing territory, but the cost kept rising. Ships that should have been replaced were not replaced. Soldiers who should have been reinforced were not reinforced. The empire was large, but it was not infinite, and humanity seemed to have endless determination. Human scientists captured weapons and studied them. Within weeks, they understood how they worked. Within months, they were building their own versions. Human engineers found weaknesses in ships that they themselves had never noticed. They shared this knowledge freely among all human forces. They were used to species that kept secrets from each other. They were used to divisions and internal conflicts that they could exploit. But humanity had no such divisions anymore. The war had united them completely. Every human was working toward the same goal. Year 5 of the war. The fleet was half its original size. Human forces had grown. New ships launched every day from factories on Earth, Mars, and the Moon. They were not as advanced as ships, but there were more of them, many more. Queen understood that she was losing. She began to consider options that she had never considered before: peace, retreat, surrender. But she waited too long. The final battle happened above Earth, where everything had begun. Commander led the main assault force, 3,000 human ships against the remaining fleet. The flagship was his target, the ship where Queen commanded her dying empire. The battle was brutal. Ships exploded like fireworks against the black sky. Debris filled the space between fleets. Communication channels were full of shouted orders and dying screams. Ship was hit during the final push. His engines failed. His weapons went offline. Most commanders would have retreated to save themselves. Did not retreat. He ordered his crew to abandon ship. Then he put on a combat suit and continued toward the flagship alone. His small emergency pod landed in a damaged section of the massive ship. He cut his way inside. The corridors of the flagship were long and dark, moved through them like a ghost. He killed guards without hesitation. He ignored wounds that should have stopped him. He was running on something deeper than strength. Purpose. He found the door to the command center. It was sealed with heavy locks. He used explosives to blow it open. The explosion threw him backward, but he got up and walked through the smoking doorway. Queen was waiting for him. She was alone. Her guards were dead or had run away. Her advisors had fled. Her empire was crumbling around her. She sat on her throne, ancient and proud, watching him with eyes that had seen the birth and death of civilizations. Raised his weapon. "Wait," the queen said. Her voice was not begging. She was too proud for that. But there was something in it that made him pause, curiosity. "I want to understand something before you kill me." Did not lower his weapon, but he did not fire. "My empire offered humanity everything," Queen continued. "We offered you technology that would have taken you centuries to develop. We offered you a place among the stars. We offered partnership. Why did you fight so hard against us?" Was silent for a moment. He thought about the cherry blossoms, about false smile, about 12,000 names read in memorial silence, about 5 years of war and millions more dead. "Because you taught us what partnership means to you," he said finally. "Your daughter showed us everything. She showed us that your empire is built on lies, that your alliances are just slow invasions, that every hand you offer hides a knife." He lowered his weapon, not because he trusted her, because killing her was no longer important. "Humans used to believe in the goodness of strangers," he continued. "We used to hope that other species would be like us, that they would value truth and friendship, killed that belief. And when you kill someone's hope, you do not make them weak." He looked at the queen with those cold, empty eyes she had seen in countless recordings over the past 5 years. "You make them free, free from hesitation, free from doubt, free from the need to see the good in their enemies." Queen stared at him. She had lived for 3,000 years. She had conquered species that spanned star systems. But in this moment, looking at this one human male standing in her broken command center, she understood something terrible. Her daughter's victory had been a defeat, the greatest defeat the Empire had ever suffered. "So what happens now?" she asked. Turned away from her, just as he had turned away from 5 years ago, the same motion, the same finality. "That depends on you. We do not need to destroy your empire. We do not need revenge. We just need to remember what you are, and we will never forget." He walked toward the door. "You will never trust us again," Queen said. It was not a question. "Never." The word hung in the air like a death sentence, then was gone. Queen sat alone in her command center as her empire surrendered. She thought about her daughter, captured somewhere on one of Jupiter's moons. She thought about the 1,000 worlds she had conquered through deception and manipulation. She thought about how easy it had been to break other species. Humans were different. They did not break, they changed. The next day, representatives signed the surrender documents. They agreed to leave human space forever. They agreed to pay reparations that would cripple their economy for generations. They agreed to everything humanity demanded. Because they had no choice. Commander did not attend the ceremony. He went home too instead. He walked along the coast where he had played as a child. He looked up at the stars that now belonged to humanity. He did not feel victory. He did not feel joy. He felt nothing at all. That part of him had died years ago in a garden full of cherry blossoms. But humanity would survive. Humanity would grow. Humanity would spread among the stars and remember forever the lesson they had learned. Trust no one, believe no one, rely only on yourselves. On Jupiter's moon, Princess sat in her cell. Her guards were human soldiers who treated her with perfect politeness and complete indifference. They fed her. They gave her books to read. They never spoke to her unless necessary. One day, a young guard named brought her food, looked at the human woman, and asked a question that had been burning in her mind for months. Why are you kind to me? After everything I did, why do you not treat me with cruelty? Shrugged, her face showed nothing. Cruelty requires emotion. It requires caring what happens to you. She set down the food tray. We do not care, princess, not anymore. She left alone. And in that small cell, surrounded by humans who would never hate her because they would never feel anything for her at all, Princess finally understood the true weight of what she had done. She had wanted to teach humanity its place in the universe. Instead, she had taught them to be like her. Cold, empty, alone. And unlike her, they had made that emptiness into strength. Outside her window, human ships patrolled the sky. Inside her chest, something that might have been regret slowly grew, but it was too late for regret, too late for anything. She had won her small victory 5 years ago, and humanity had turned that victory into her eternal defeat. The queen's silence, the princess's prison, the commander's empty heart. These were the prices of the lesson she had taught. And humanity would remember that lesson forever.